The knife pressed against the 10-year-old boy's throat. One wrong move and Tommy would die. Vincent Kane smiled. "Give me that journal or the kid bleeds out right here on this bridge." Lily had 11 cents when she arrived in Montana. Now she was betting everything, including a child's life, on a 30-year-old murder confession. But this story, it started with a forged letter and a lie. But before we begin, hit that like button, subscribe for more untold stories of the American frontier, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. Are you Team Lily? Let me know below. Now let's go back to where it all started. Montana Territory, 1885. A desperate woman steps off a stagecoach with dried blood on her lip and almost nothing in her pocket. She's chasing a promise that doesn't exist. This is her story. The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of Silverwood's General Store, and Lily Rose Brennan stepped down into Montana dust with 11 cents in her pocket and dried blood at the corner of her mouth. 3 days from Philadelphia. 3 days of rattling bones and sleepless nights, clutching her carpet bag to her chest, while the driver's eyes lingered too long in the rearview mirror. 3 days of wondering if she'd made the worst mistake of her life, trading one kind of prison for another. The mountain towns spread before her like something from a dime novel. Wooden buildings lined a wide dirt street, their false fronts promising civilization, while their weathered boards told the truth about frontier life. Pine trees crowded the edges of town, and beyond them the Rockies rose into a sky so blue it hurt to look at. The air smelled of sawdust and wood smoke, and something else. Freedom, maybe. Or just the particular scent of a place where nobody knew her name yet, where nobody knew what she was running from. Lily touched her split lip, gently wincing. The driver had tried something on the second night when they'd stopped to water the horses. She'd fought back with the only weapon she had, a carpentry awl her father had given her years ago. Drew blood from the man's cheek before he'd backed off, cursing. He'd left her alone after that, but the hatred in his eyes promised she'd pay for the insult somehow. Men always made you pay. She smoothed her traveling dress, navy blue wool, that had once been fine but now showed every mile of hard road. Her carpet bag held everything she owned. 2 other dresses, both mended multiple times. Her father's old leather tool roll, the chisels and planes inside worth more than gold to her. A small coat that had belonged to Clara, still smelling faintly of lavender and sickness. And tucked in the bottom, the letter that had brought her here. The letter, she pulled it from her pocket now, unfolding the creased paper for what must have been the 100th time. The handwriting was neat, masculine, practical. No flourishes, no wasted words. Miss Brennan, I am Caleb McAllister, rancher in Montana Territory. I require a wife to manage my household and help raise my young nephew. I can offer respectability, steady income, and a future. If you are of good character and willing to work, we believe we could make a fair arrangement. Arrive before month's end, Stone Creek Ranch, 3 miles east of Silverwood. Caleb McAllister, no poetry, no promises of love. Just honest work for honest pay, which was more than she'd had in Philadelphia. More than she'd had since her father died 2 years ago and left her to the mercy of her stepfather, Henry Clark. Henry. Even thinking his name made her stomach turn. He'd married her mother for the carpentry business, then sold it the week after her mother died, gambling away every cent at cards and dice. When creditors came calling, when the rent came due, when there was nothing left but a daughter who could still fetch a price, Henry had found his solution. $80 from the mail-order bride agency, $40 to pay his debts, $40 for whiskey and another round of cards. Lily had left in the night, taking only what she could carry. Left Henry passed out drunk on the floor. Left the Philadelphia row house where she'd been born, where her father had taught her to read wood grain and cut dovetail joints. Left her sister's grave in the potter's field because she couldn't even afford a proper headstone. Clara, 8 years old, dead from consumption because medicine cost $8 and Lily only had 3. She'd pawned everything. Her mother's wedding ring, her father's good, saw her own winter coat. Still not enough, never enough. She pressed her palm against the small coat in her bag, feeling the wool rough against her skin. Some things you carried. Some things you couldn't leave behind, even when they weighed more than iron. A woman passed on the boardwalk, expensive dress rustling, and gave Lily a once-over that took in every rip, every stain, every mark of poverty. Her nose wrinkled slightly before she moved on. Lily was used to that look. The look that said you don't belong here. The look that said you're less than. Well, she'd see about that. The letter had given an address, Stone Creek Ranch, 3 miles east of town. Lily picked up her bag, straightened her shoulders, and started walking. The town was busier than she'd expected. Miners coming down from the high country ranchers in for supplies, families going about their daily business. A group of children played in the street throwing a ball back and forth. Their laughter echoed off the storefronts, bright and uncomplicated. Normal life. The kind of life that had nothing to do with hunger or fear or sleeping with an awl under your pillow in case your stepfather got ideas. She passed a boarding house. 3 stories of whitewashed wood with a sign that read, Murphy's Rooms. A woman stood on the porch, gray-haired and stern-faced, sweeping dust into the street. Their eyes met for a moment. The woman's gaze sharpened, taking in Lily's condition with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen hard times before. Then she nodded once, a gesture that might have been respect or recognition or simple acknowledgement that one woman's struggle was much like another's. Lily nodded back and kept walking. 3 miles east. The dirt road wound through grassland dotted with cattle. The mountains loomed closer here, their peaks still touched with snow even in late summer. The air grew cooler as she walked, carrying the scent of pine and something wild. Her feet ached. The carpet bag grew heavier with each step. Sweat dampened her collar despite the mountain breeze. But she kept walking, because going back wasn't an option, because 11 cents wouldn't buy a stagecoach ticket anywhere, because Caleb McAllister had promised respectability and a future, and that was all she had left to hope for. The ranch appeared around a bend in the road like a mirage shimmering into reality. 2,000 acres of grassland stretched toward the mountains dotted with cattle that looked like toys from this distance. Split-rail fences carved the land into neat sections. A large barn stood near a cluster of corrals, its wood weathered silver by sun and wind. And there, set back from the road, with mountains rising behind it, stood the house. It was bigger than she'd expected. 2 stories of solid log construction with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. The kind of house built to withstand Montana winters and mountain storms. The kind of house that said someone had put down roots and meant to stay. But something about it felt wrong. Empty, maybe, or just lonely. The windows had no curtains. The porch held no chairs, no flowers in pots, no sign that anyone sat there in the evenings to watch the sunset. It was a house, yes, but not a home. Movement caught her eye. In the largest corral, a man stood working with a horse. Even from a distance, Lily could see the animal was wild fighting the rope, eyes rolling white with fear. The man moved with patient confidence, voice too low to hear, but tone steady calming. He wore worn denim and a leather vest, dusty chaps over his pants. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the easy strength of someone who'd spent his whole life working with his hands and his back. This had to be Caleb McAllister. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd come 2,000 miles to marry this stranger. Had bet everything she had left on a letter written in neat, practical handwriting. Please God, let him be kind. Let him be decent. Let this not be another mistake in a long line of mistakes that started the day her father died and left her alone in a world that ate women without protection. She walked toward the corral, her footsteps loud on the packed earth. The man's back was to her, still focused on the horse. Leather creaked. The animal snorted, stamped. Mr. McAllister. The man froze, set down the lasso with careful precision, movements deliberate, then turned to face her. Caleb McAllister looked like he'd been carved from the same mountains that rose behind his ranch. Hard angles and weathered lines. Gray eyes that had seen too much sorrow to trust easily. Maybe 35, maybe older. The kind of face that would be handsome if it ever smiled, but right now just looked tired. Those gray eyes swept over her, taking in her split lip, her stained dress, her carpet bag clutched in white-knuckled hands. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his gaze. Surprise, maybe, or disappointment. She smoothed her skirt with one hand, suddenly aware of how she must look. 3 days of dust and fear and sleepless nights. Blood dried at the corner of her mouth, exhaustion carved into every line of her body. I'm Lily Brennan, she said, forcing her voice steady. From Philadelphia. I got your letter. Silence. Long enough that her heart started to sink, that cold certainty creeping in, that something was wrong, that this was all wrong. Then Caleb McAllister said very quietly, "I didn't send any letter." The words hit like a physical blow. Lily's vision tunneled the ranch spinning around her, the mountains, the house, the cattle, all of it blurring into meaningless shapes. No, that wasn't possible. She'd spent her last dollars on the stagecoach fare. She'd left everything behind. She'd come all this way. "I don't understand." Her voice came out small, childlike. She hated how weak she sounded. "Your letter said you needed a wife to manage your household and help raise your nephew. It had your name, your address." "Let me see it." She handed over the paper with trembling fingers. Watched his face as he read. Saw his jaw tighten. Saw anger flash hot in those gray eyes. "This isn't my handwriting." He thrust the letter back at her and, "Someone's playing a game and you got caught in it. I'm sorry you traveled all this way, Miss Brennan, but I didn't send for a mail-order bride. I don't need a wife. I won't be taking one." The finality in his voice was worse than anything. Worse than Henry's cruelty, worse than watching Clara die, worse than 3 days of fear on a stagecoach. Because this was the end of hope. This was the moment when all her desperate planning crashed against reality and shattered into pieces too small to gather up again. "Please, Rika." She hated begging, but pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. "I have nowhere else to go. I can work. I'm strong. I can clean, cook, whatever you need." "I don't need anything." His voice was flat, emotionless. "There's a boarding house back in town. Murphy's Rooms. Try there." "I don't have money for a boarding house." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I have 11 cents. That's what's left after traveling from Philadelphia to chase a lie." Something crossed his face then. Not quite pity, but close. He opened his mouth to speak. "Uncle Cal." A boy's voice calling from the barn. Young, curious. "Who's that?" A child appeared from behind a stack of hay bales. Maybe 10 years old, all elbows and knees, dark hair like Caleb's, but his eyes were lighter, more open. He stared at Lily with unabashed curiosity. "Nobody. Tommy." Caleb's voice gentled slightly when he addressed the boy. "Go back to your chores." "But she looks like she needs help." Tommy moved closer, looking up at Lily with concern that made her throat tight. "Did someone hit you?" "Tommy." Caleb's voice hardened. "Inside. Now." The boy hesitated, clearly wanting to argue, but something in his uncle's tone made him obey. He cast one more worried glance at Lily before disappearing into the barn. His words hung in the air between them. "Did someone hit you?" Caleb's eyes found her split lip again. His expression was still hard, still closed, but she saw his hands flex at his sides. Saw him take a long breath. "Miss Brennan." His voice was quieter now, more controlled. "I'm sorry you were deceived. I'm sorry you came all this way. But I can't help you. I won't be responsible for another person's welfare. I learned that lesson once, and I won't learn it again." There was pain there, old deep pain that had scarred over but never healed. She recognized it because she wore the same scars. "I understand." She did. She understood that everyone carried damage, that everyone built walls. But understanding didn't change her situation. The sun was dropping toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. Soon it would be dark. Soon she'd need to walk 3 miles back to town on an empty stomach with 11 cents and no prospects. "Can you at least tell me who might have sent that letter?" Her voice was steady now, anger replacing desperation. "Who would pretend to be you?" Caleb's jaw worked for a moment. Then he said, "Vincent Kane owns the biggest cattle operation in the territory. He's been trying to buy my land for 2 years. I've refused every offer. He's got a sense of humor like that." "Why would he do this to you, to me?" "Because he can. Because he likes making people look foolish." Caleb turned back to his horse, picking up the lasso again. The conversation was over. "I'm sorry, Miss Brennan. I truly am, but you need to leave." Lily stood there for another moment watching him work. Part of her wanted to scream. Part of her wanted to cry. Part of her wanted to take one of the tools from the barn and break something, anything, just to release the rage building in her chest. But mostly she just felt tired. Tired down to her bones. Tired of fighting and losing. Tired of hoping and being disappointed. She picked up her carpet bag and walked back down the road towards Silverwood. Didn't look back even though she could feel Caleb's eyes on her. Didn't let herself cry even though tears burned behind her eyes. The mountains were still beautiful, the sky still painfully blue. But none of it mattered because she was alone and broke and had nowhere to go. 11 cents. That was her fortune. That was all that stood between her and starvation. The walk back to town took an hour. By the time she reached Murphy's rooms, the sun had set and lamplight glowed in windows up and down the street. The boarding house sign swayed gently in the evening breeze. Lily climbed the porch steps, her carpet bag feeling heavier with each movement. The door stood open to catch the air. Inside, the boarding house was neat and clean, if Spartan. Simple furniture, whitewashed walls, the smell of lye soap and coffee. A staircase led to the upper floors. A dining room opened to the left table set for supper. The gray-haired woman emerged from a back room, wiping her hands on her apron. Up close, she was older than Lily had first thought. Maybe 55, with the kind of weathered face that came from hard work and harder years. But her eyes were sharp, missing nothing. "Help you," her voice was rough, a smoker's rasp. "I'm looking for a room." Lily forced herself to meet that sharp gaze. "I can't pay much right now, but I can work. I'm good with cleaning, mending, cooking." "How much is not much?" 11 cents. The woman's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. She'd been poor once, too. Maybe still was in all the ways that mattered. 11 cents won't buy you a night. She crossed her arms. But I could use help with the supper service. You work tonight, clean up. After, I'll give you a meal and a bed in the attic. Tomorrow we'll see about more permanent arrangements. Relief flooded through Lily so fast it made her dizzy. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. I work my help hard. The woman stuck out a calloused hand. Kate Murphy, I own this place. Lily Brennan. She shook the offered hand, feeling the strength in that grip. I won't disappoint you. We'll see. Kate's eyes narrowed slightly, taking in the split lip, the exhausted set of Lily's shoulders. You running from something, girl? No, ma'am, just running towards something that turned out not to exist. Kate snorted. Ain't that always the way? Come on then, put your bag upstairs, third door on the right, then get yourself down to the kitchen. We serve at 6, and I've got 12 boarders who will complain if their food's cold. The work was exactly what Lily needed. Mindless physical, no time to think about Caleb McAllister or forged letters or the fact that she'd gambled everything on a lie. She peeled potatoes until her hands cramped, stirred pots of stew until her arm ached, scrubbed pans until her fingers were red and raw. The boarders filed in at 6 sharp, a mix of miners and merchants, older men mostly worn down by years of chasing fortune in the high country. They ate with single-minded focus, shoveling food like they were stoking a furnace. Barely looked at her when she brought fresh bread or refilled water pitchers. All except one. He came in last, taking a seat at the corner table. Younger than the others, maybe 40, with slicked back hair and a suit that was too nice for a mining town. His smile showed too many teeth and his eyes moved over Lily in a way that made her skin crawl. Well now, his voice was smooth-cultured. Kate's got new help. And prettier than the last girl. Kate appeared from the kitchen, her face hard. Leave her be, Kane. She's here to work, not entertain you. Kane. Vincent Kane, the man who'd sent the forged letter. Lily felt her anger spike hot and bright. This man had destroyed her last hope for sport, had brought her across the country as a joke, had ruined her life because he could, because it amused him. She set down the water pitcher very carefully, afraid of what she might do with it otherwise. Kane's smile widened. I'm just being friendly, Kate. No harm in friendly. Your version of friendly usually ends with someone getting hurt. Kate jerked her head at Lily. Kitchen now. But Lily didn't move. She stared at Kane, memorizing that smug face, that expensive suit, making a promise to herself that someday, somehow, this man would pay for what he'd done. You're Vincent Kane, she said quietly. His eyebrows rose. My reputation precedes me. You sent a letter to Philadelphia, pretending to be Caleb McAllister, asking for a mail-order bride. The room went quiet. Every boarder stopped eating forks frozen halfway to mouths. Kate's expression turned thunderous. Kane laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, that. Yes, I thought Cal could use a little excitement in his life. Did you actually fall for it? Come all the way out here expected to marry that gloomy rancher? I spent my last money getting here. Lily's voice was steady now, cold. I have nowhere to go, no way to get home, because you thought it would be funny. Well, Kane dabbed at his mouth with a napkin. I suppose that is unfortunate. Tell you what, since I'm feeling generous, I could use help at my ranch. I'll pay you $8 a week. That's more than fair for a woman. And what exactly would this help entail? His smile turned predatory. Whatever I need, sweetheart. Cooking, cleaning, keeping me company when the nights get long. The other boarders looked away. Kate moved forward, her hand reaching for something under her apron. But Lily held up one hand, stopping her. I'd rather starve, Lily said clearly. Kane's expression darkened. Careful, girl. Jobs are scarce in Silverwood, especially for outsiders. You insult me. You insult the man who basically runs this town. Then I guess I'm insulting you. He stood slowly, deliberately, using his height to intimidate. Moved close enough that she could smell pomade and whiskey on him. You'll regret this. I guarantee it. Possibly. Lily didn't back down. But at least I'll regret it with my dignity intact. For a moment, she thought he might hit her, saw his hand twitch, saw the rage flash across his face. But then Kate was there, stepping between them. And whatever she had under her apron was now visible in her hand, a small pistol, old but well-maintained. Out, Kate said flatly. You're not welcome in my house anymore, Kane. Find somewhere else to take your meals. Kane looked at the gun, then at Kate, then at Lily. His smile came back colder than before. This isn't over. Remember what I said, girl. Jobs are scarce. You'll come begging eventually. They all do. He left his expensive boots loud on the wooden floor. The door slammed behind him. Silence. Then slowly the other boarders went back to eating, conversations resuming in low murmurs. Crisis averted. Entertainment over. Kate tucked the pistol away. That was stupid. I know. He'll make your life hell now. He owns half the businesses in town. Has the sheriff in his pocket. Cross him and you'll find every door closed. I know that too. Lily met Kate's eyes. But I've been pushed around by men like him my whole life. I'm done bending. Kate studied her for a long moment. Then incredibly, she smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger, softer. Good. I like you, Lily Brennan. You've got spine. The world eats women without spine. The world tries to eat us anyway. True enough. Kate squeezed her shoulder, a gesture that might have been comfort or solidarity, or both. Come on, let's get these dishes done. Tomorrow we'll figure out real work for you, and I'll talk to some people, see who's hiring, and who'll tell Kane to go to hell. They worked side by side in the kitchen, washing plates and scrubbing pots while the boarders finished their meals upstairs. Kate talked while they worked, filling the silence with information about Silverwood. The town was maybe 15 years old, built on lumber and silver mining. Most of the men who'd come seeking fortune had found only hard work and broken dreams. But a few had struck it rich. Vincent Kane was one of them. Started as a ranch hand, Kate said, scrubbing at a stubborn pot. And now owns Kane Cattle Company and half a dozen other properties. Ruthless in business, worse in his personal life. She paused, her hands stilling in the wash water. Couple years back, a young man named Walter worked at his ranch. Good kid. Her voice went quiet. My son, actually, started asking questions about the cattle Kane was using for a government contract. Said some of them were sick, dangerous to sell. Warned it could cause an outbreak. Kate's hands resumed scrubbing, but her movements were harder, now angry. Week later, Walter had an accident. Trampled by a spooked horse. Sheriff ruled it bad luck. But I know better. I know Kane killed my boy for threatening his profit. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. That's terrible. It's the world. Kate's voice was flat. The Kanes get away with murder because they've got money and power. The rest of us just try to survive. What about Caleb McAllister? Lily asked. Where does he fit in all this? Kate's expression softened slightly. Cal's a good man. Quiet. Keeps to himself mostly. His wife and baby daughter died about 3 years back. Fever took them both while he was away buying cattle in Denver. He came home to find them already buried. Her voice was gentle, the way people spoke of tragedies too great for anger. Broke something in him. He's never been the same since. Vaughn. Lily thought about those gray eyes, that flat voice. I learned that lesson once and I won't learn it again. He'd meant loss. He'd meant that caring for people led to pain. She understood that better than she wanted to. He's raising his nephew Tommy now, Kate continued. Boy's parents died in a mining accident a year back. Cal's all the family he's got left. Does his best, but he's not exactly warm. Tommy needs more than cold efficiency. And why did Kane target him with that letter? Kane wanted to buy Cal's land, made a good offer too. Cal refused. So Kane's been making his life difficult ever since. Stealing contracts, spreading rumors, stupid pranks like that letter. Trying to force Cal to sell. Why does Kane want the land so badly? Kate paused thinking. Water, probably. Cal's property backs onto Silver Creek. Only reliable water source on that end of the territory. Control the water control, who can run cattle. Kane wants a monopoly. Politics and power and men playing games with other people's lives. Lily had left Philadelphia to escape exactly that. Apparently, geography didn't matter. The game was the same everywhere. They finished the dishes as the sky outside turned purple with dusk. Kate showed Lily to her room, a tiny attic space with a sloped ceiling and a narrow bed. Simple but clean. The window looked out over the main street, now quiet as the town settled in for the night. Get some rest, Kate said from the doorway. Tomorrow you can start asking around about work. I'll spread the word you're looking. Someone will need help, especially someone willing to stand up to Kane. Thank you, Kate, for everything. The older woman waved it off. We women have to stick together. Lord knows nobody else will look out for us. After she left, Lily sat on the bed and finally let herself feel the weight of the day. The fear, the disappointment, the exhaustion. She pulled Clara's coat from her bag and held it close, breathing in the faint scent of lavender. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered to the empty room. I don't know how to survive this. But even as she said it, she knew she would find a way. Because the alternative was going back to Philadelphia. Back to Henry. Back to being nothing and nobody. And she'd rather die in Montana than live like that. Tomorrow she'd find work. Tomorrow she'd start rebuilding. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to turn 11 cents into a future. Tonight she just needed to sleep. Lily lay down still, holding Clara's coat, and closed her eyes. Outside, the mountains stood silent under the stars. Somewhere in the darkness, a wolf howled. The sound was lonely and wild and somehow comforting. She was still here, still breathing, still fighting. That would have to be enough. Morning came cold and bright. Lily woke to sunlight streaming through the attic window and the smell of coffee drifting up from the kitchen below. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then reality crashed back and she groaned. Montana, Silverwood, 11 cents and nowhere to go. She dressed quickly in her second dress, dark green wool, that was slightly less worn than yesterday's outfit, braided her hair into something respectable, ignored the way her stomach cramped with hunger. She'd eaten last night at least. That was more than she'd had some days in Philadelphia. Downstairs, Kate was already cooking breakfast for the boarders. Eggs and bacon and fresh bread that made Lily's mouth water. Kate jerked her head toward a plate set aside. Eat fast, then I need you to run some deliveries for me. Mended linens for 3 of the businesses in town. You'll meet people. They'll see you're willing to work. Maybe lead to something more permanent. Lily ate standing up, shoveling food with the kind of desperate speed that came from never knowing when the next meal might arrive. The eggs were perfect, the bacon crispy, the bread still warm. It was the best thing she'd tasted in months. Kate handed her a basket loaded with neatly folded linens. First stop is Tom's smithy end of Main Street. He's a good man, known him for years. Then Doc Cross's office, second floor above the general store. Last is the saloon, but watch yourself there. Some of the morning drinkers get handsy. I can handle myself. I believe you. Kate pressed something into her hand, a small folding knife, the kind ladies carried for cutting thread. But the blade was sharp, recently honed. Just in case, Lily pocketed the knife, feeling its weight like a promise. Thank you. The morning air was crisp, touched with pine and the promise of autumn. Silverwood looked different in daylight, less threatening, more tired. Just another town full of people trying to get by. The businesses were opening, shopkeepers sweeping porches, setting out their wares. Tom's smithy was exactly where Kate said. A stone building with a forge already glowing red hot. The ring of hammer on anvil echoed down the street. Lily pushed through the open door into heat and smoke and the smell of hot metal. An old man stood at the forge, white-haired and bent with age, but his arms were still thick with muscle, and his strikes were sure and steady. He looked up as she entered, eyes sharp under bushy eyebrows. "Help you, miss. Delivery from Kate Murphy." Lily held up the basket. "Mended linens." "Ah, good. Set them over there." He pointed to a clean bench near the door. "Kate does fine work. Tell her I said so." Lily set down the basket, but something made her pause. The smithy was full of tools, racks of horseshoes and nails, and pieces of ironwork waiting to be finished. But what caught her eye was a small chest sitting on the workbench, half completed. The metalwork was beautiful, delicate hinges and a lock plate decorated with scroll work, the kind of craftsmanship that took years to master. But the wooden panels were rough, poorly fitted. Gaps showed where the pieces joined. Any moisture would warp it. "That's lovely," she said without thinking. Tom glanced at the chest, then back at her. "Been working on it for months. It's for my granddaughter, her wedding present. But I can't get the wood parts right. I'm good with iron, not so much with carpentry." Lily moved closer, studying the chest. The metalwork was perfect, but the wooden panels needed help. "The panels need to be rabbited," she said, running her finger along the joint. "Cut a groove so they fit together, tighter sealed. Otherwise, humidity will make them swell." Tom's eyebrows rose. "You know carpentry." Too late, Lily realized her mistake. Ladies weren't supposed to know about joints and grooves. Ladies were supposed to know needlework and cooking. But the words were already out. "My father was a carpenter. He taught me." "Did he now?" Tom set down his hammer, giving her his full attention. "Not many women learn the trade. Not many fathers treat their daughters like sons." Lily met his gaze steadily. "But mine did." He said, "Good work doesn't care about the hands that make it." Something shifted in Tom's expression. Approval, maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit. "Your father sounds like a wise man." "He was, before he died and left me with nothing." The bitterness in her own voice surprised her. She hadn't meant to be so honest, so raw. But Tom just nodded like he understood. "That's the way of the world, isn't it? The good ones die and the bastards live forever." He turned back to the chest. "You think you could fix this? The wooden parts I'd pay fair." Lily's heart jumped. Work. Real work using the skills her father had taught her. "I could try, but I don't have tools." "I know someone who does. Someone who owes me a favor." Tom smiled, and it transformed his weathered face. "Leave this with me. I'll talk to Cal McAllister. See if he'll let you use his workshop for a few hours. In exchange, I'll fix that plow blade he's been putting off." "Caleb won't want to help me." Lily thought about yesterday, about the flat rejection in those gray eyes. "He made it very clear I should stay away." "Cal's a stubborn fool, but he's not cruel, and he respects skill when he sees it." Tom stuck out a gnarled hand. "I'm Tom Fletcher, by the way. Been smithing in this town since before most of these buildings were standing." "Lily Brennan." She shook his hand. "I'm new here." "Brennan." Tom's expression changed suddenly. He stared at her, really stared, taking in her features with new intensity. "Brennan from where?" "Philadelphia. My father was Michael Brennan. He had a carpentry business there." The color drained from Tom's face. He gripped the edge of his workbench like he might fall over otherwise. Michael Brennan." His voice was barely a whisper. "Lord have mercy. You knew him." "Knew him." Tom's laugh was hollow. "Girl, I worked with him. Back before he went east, before he married and had a family. We were partners, him and me, and a man named Isaiah Stone." The world tilted sideways. Isaiah Stone, Caleb's father. This wasn't coincidence. This was something bigger. Something that connected her father and Caleb's father and this old man in ways she didn't understand yet. "What happened?" she asked. "Why did you split up?" Tom's expression darkened. "That's a long story, and not one I should tell standing in a smithy where anyone could walk in." He glanced toward the street, then back at her. "You trust Kate Murphy?" "I think so." "Then go finish your deliveries. Come back at sundown. I'll tell you everything then." He hesitated, then added softly, "Michael was a good man. Best carpenter I ever knew. I'm sorry he's gone. And I'm sorrier still that his daughter ended up in Silverwood with 11 cents and nowhere to turn." "How did you know about the 11 cents?" "Kate told me when she asked me to give you a chance. We look out for each other, those of us who've been here since the beginning. Tom picked up his hammer again. Sundown Lily Brennan. I'll tell you why your father never spoke of his time in Montana and why that might be the most important thing you ever learn. Sundown painted the mountains in shades of blood and gold. Lily stood outside Tom Fletcher's smithy, her heart hammering, as the old blacksmith locked the door and gestured for her to follow him to the back room, where a small table and two chairs waited. He poured whiskey into two tin cups without asking if she wanted any, then sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 70 years. Your father, Tom began. Michael Brennan. He came to Montana in 1853, 22 years old, fresh off a boat from Ireland, with carpentry skills his father had beaten into him, and a dream of owning land nobody could take away. Lily wrapped her hands around the cup, not drinking, just needing something to hold. He met Isaiah Stone that first winter. Isaiah was a rancher, but he loved working with wood the way some men love horses or cards. They became friends first, then partners. Started building custom furniture for the mining camps, fence posts that wouldn't rot, barn doors that hung true even in winter. Tom took a long drink. I was shoeing their horses when they asked if I'd join up, make hardware for the furniture hinges and locks and decorative work. We called ourselves Stone, Brennan, and Fletcher. Three men who figured if we worked hard enough, we could build something that lasted. The pride in his voice was clear even after 30 years. We were good, real good. Orders came from as far as Denver. But the real money, the thing that would have made our fortune, was the waterproof varnish. Lily leaned forward. What varnish? Isaiah's idea, Michael's chemistry. They spent 2 years developing a formula that could protect wood from moisture damage. Not just for a season, but for decades. Imagine fence posts that never rotted, barn wood that shrugged off rain and snow, bridge timbers that could last a lifetime. Tom's hands trembled slightly as he refilled his cup. They were so close to perfecting it, had notebooks full of formulas, test results, everything documented, worth thousands, maybe tens of thousands if they could patent it and sell to the railroad companies. What happened? Gerald Pike happened. Tom's voice went hard. He was just a kid then, maybe 17. Worked as our apprentice, doing the grunt work while we focused on the skilled labor. Bitter from the start, always complaining he did all the work while we took all the credit. The forge had gone cold, but the room still held heat, making sweat bead on Lily's forehead. September 1855. Isaiah was working late at the barn testing a new batch of varnish. Beam fell on him, crushed him. Sheriff said it was an accident, old wood finally giving way. But it wasn't. No. Tom's eyes were distant, seeing the past. I found saw marks on that beam later. Someone had cut it halfway through, weakened it so it would collapse under weight. I told the sheriff. He said I was seeing things. Because Pike paid him off. Because Pike had an alibi, was supposedly at a dance in town when it happened. Dozen witnesses. But I knew the way you know when winter's coming deep in your bones. Tom stood pacing to the window. Your father knew too. Pike came to him the next night, told him accidents happen to men who ask too many questions. Michael was terrified. He had a sweetheart back in Philadelphia, was planning to send for her once the varnish money came through. He packed up and left within a week. Lily's throat was tight. And the formula? Gone. Every notebook, every test result. Stolen the night Isaiah died. We figured Pike took them, but we couldn't prove it. By the time I worked up the courage to search his room at the boarding house, he'd cleared out. Disappeared for a year. Then came back rich. Tom nodded. Came back with money to buy property, invest in businesses. Claimed he'd struck silver in California. Nobody questioned it. They never do when a poor man suddenly has gold in his pockets. The pieces were falling into place, a puzzle 30 years old finally showing its picture. And Caleb, Lily asked? He knows. He was 14 when his father died. Found the body. Smart kid, noticed the saw marks before anyone else. But who listens to a grieving boy? He's carried that knowledge his whole life, knowing his father was murdered and being powerless to prove it. Tom returned to his chair. That's why he's the way he is, cold, closed off. He learned young that the world doesn't care about justice, only about who has money and power. And Vincent Kane, Pike's business partner, Probably doesn't even know the cattle operation was built on murder and theft. He's just a parasite feeding on a corpse. Tom's voice was bitter. But he's learned from Pike. Same ruthlessness. Same willingness to destroy anyone who gets in his way. Lily thought about her father fleeing Montana in terror, living his whole life looking over his shoulder. Or had he? Something nagged at her, some detail that didn't fit. Tom, she said slowly, when did my father leave Montana? September 1855, week after Isaiah died. And when did he arrive in Friedrichshafen? I don't know. He wrote me one letter, said he'd made it safely, was starting over. Then nothing. I figured he wanted to forget this place. Lily's hands went cold despite the warm room. Her father had died 2 years ago. She'd been with him at the end, holding his hand, as consumption took him the same way it had taken Clara. But she'd been born in 1857. If her father had fled Montana in September 1855, and she was born in 1857, that meant he'd arrived in Philadelphia, met her mother, courted her, married her, all within 2 years. Possible, yes. But the timing felt wrong somehow. Did my father ever mention my mother? She asked. Her name, where they met. Tom shook his head. Just said he'd found love and was starting a family. Sounded happy in that one letter. I was glad for him after all the horror. Lily stood abruptly. Thank you for telling me this. It explains a lot. There's more. Tom's voice stopped her at the door. Caleb's wife, Anna. She died 3 years ago, her and their daughter, Ruth. Cal was in Denver buying cattle when fever hit. By the time he got the telegram and made it home, they were already buried. Kate told me. Did she tell you that Cal blames himself, that he thinks if he had been there, instead of chasing business, he could have saved them? That's why he won't let anyone close now. He's convinced that loving people makes you vulnerable, makes you weak. Tom met her eyes. I'm telling you this because I saw the way he looked at you yesterday. Like a man seeing light for the first time after years in darkness. And I saw the way you looked at him. Like maybe you understand what it's like to carry ghosts. I don't even know him. You know loss. That's enough to start with. Lily walked back to Murphy's rooms as full darkness fell, her mind churning with everything Tom had told her. The partnership, the murder, the stolen formula, her father's flight, and Caleb, 14 years old, finding his father's crushed body and knowing it was murder. No wonder he'd built walls. No wonder he refused to care about anyone. Caring got you killed, or worse, it got the people you loved killed while you were away chasing money. Kate was waiting in the kitchen when Lily arrived, a pot of coffee on the stove and concern in her eyes. Tom tell you about the old days? He did. And I understand why Caleb McAllister wants nothing to do with me or anyone else. Lily poured herself coffee with shaking hands. But that doesn't solve my problem. I still need work. I still need to survive. Kate studied her for a long moment. There might be something. The Hendersons, they run a dry goods store on the north end of town. Sarah Henderson mentioned last week she needs help with inventory. It's not much, maybe $2 a week, but it's honest work. $2 a week. It would take months to save enough to go anywhere, do anything. But it was better than 11 cents in desperation. Thank you. I'll go see them tomorrow. But tomorrow brought different news. Lily was sweeping the boarding house porch when a man rode up on a dusty horse, his face familiar from the previous night's dinner service. One of the quieter boarders, a merchant named Davies. Miss Brennan, he dismounted, hat in hand. I heard you were looking for work. I was planning to offer you a position at my warehouse. $3 a week inventory and bookkeeping. $3, more than the Hendersons offer. That's very generous, Mr. Davies. When would I start? His face fell. That's the thing. I just came from my warehouse. Found a note nailed to the door. Warning that anyone who hires you will lose their business contracts with Kane Cattle Company. The coffee in Lily's stomach turned to acid. Vincent Kane. I'm sorry. Davies twisted his hat. I can't afford to lose those contracts. They're 60% of my income. I wanted you to know it's not personal. You seem like a good worker, but Kane's made it clear you're not to be employed anywhere in Silverwood. He rode away, leaving Lily standing on the porch with her broom and her dwindling options. Kate appeared in the doorway. I heard. The Hendersons sent word this morning too. Same message. Kane's put out word that hiring you means losing his business. Threat level 1, financial warfare. Cut off every avenue of income until desperation forced surrender. How long can I stay here? Lily asked quietly. Working for room and board. As long as you need, Kate's voice was fierce. I don't do business with Kane, never have. He can threaten all he wants. But they both knew this couldn't last. Kate needed paying boarders, not charity cases. Eventually, Lily would have to leave, or Kate would suffer for harboring her. The morning stretched into afternoon. Lily helped with laundry, scrubbed floors, peeled vegetables for dinner. Mindless work that left her brain free to circle the same problem over and over. No Jew, no money, no prospects. Kane had boxed her in as neatly as a carpenter joints wood. She was pulling sheets from the clothesline when hoofbeats announced another visitor. For a moment, hope flared, maybe someone willing to defy Kane's edict. But the rider was Caleb McAllister. He sat his horse with the easy grace of a man born to the saddle, dusty from the range, his gray eyes finding her immediately. Tommy was perched behind him, grinning. Caleb dismounted, then helped Tommy down. Miss Brennan? His voice was formal, careful. I heard about Kane's threats. I'm sorry, that's my fault. He's using you to get at me. It's not your fault a man decided to be cruel for sport. Maybe not, but I can help make it right. He pulled off his hat, turning it in his hands. I need someone at the ranch. Tommy's struggling with his schoolwork, needs tutoring. There's carpentry work, piling up fences that need proper repair. I can offer $4 a week cabin out back if you want it, or stay here and I'll pay Kate for your room. $4, more than any other offer. But more than that, it was work using her actual skills, work that mattered. Why, she asked. Yesterday you told me to leave. What changed? Caleb looked at Tommy, then back at her. Tommy asked me last night if I thought I'd ever be happy again. I told him I was trying, but the truth is I stopped trying when Anna died. Stopped trying to be anything but functional. He met her eyes fully for the first time. Tom Fletcher came by this morning. Told me you're Michael Brennan's daughter. Told me you know real carpentry, not just basic repairs. And he reminded me that my father and yours were partners. Said they'd both be ashamed of me for turning away a skilled worker just because I'm too scared to let anyone close. Are you, Lily asked, scared to let people close? Terrified. The honesty in his voice was startling. But I'm more scared of what I'm teaching Tommy, that it's better to be alone than to risk caring, that walls keep you safe when really they just keep you lonely. Tommy tugged on Caleb's sleeve. I told Uncle Cal you were nice, and that you knew about split lips because you had one too, and that maybe you needed help as much as we do. Out of the mouths of children. Lily looked at this man, this grieving rancher with his orphaned nephew and his murdered father, and his walls built so high they blocked out the sun. Looked at the boy who'd lost everyone and was still brave enough to hope. Looked at the chance to use her skills to build something instead of just surviving. I'll take the job, she said, but I have conditions. Caleb's eyebrow rose. Conditions? I'm not a housekeeper. I'm a carpenter. If you need someone to cook and clean, hire a housekeeper. But if you want fences built properly and furniture that'll last 100 years, then you work with me as a partner, not an employee. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Partners, then. You teach Tommy repair what needs repairing, and I'll pay you fair wages and stay out of your way. And one more thing. Lily stepped closer. Whatever walls you've built, whatever grief you're carrying, I won't be the one to fix it. I've got my own ghosts. But I also won't tiptoe around your pain or pretend it doesn't exist. We're both broken. Might as well be broken honestly. For the first time since she'd met him, Caleb McAllister smiled. Just a slight curve of his mouth gone almost as quickly as it appeared. Fair enough. When can you start? Now. The ride to Stone Creek Ranch took 30 minutes. Lily perched behind Tommy on Caleb's horse, her carpet bag secured to the saddle. The boy chattered the whole way, pointing out landmarks and telling stories about cattle drives and wild horses. Caleb said little, but she felt the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself rigid, like proximity to another person was something to be endured rather than enjoyed. The ranch looked different in afternoon light. The mountains seemed closer, more protective than imprisoning. The house still lacked warmth, but the land itself was beautiful. Rolling grassland dotted with wildflowers. The creek Tom had mentioned, Silver Creek, running clear and cold through the eastern pasture. Caleb showed her the cabin first. Small but solid, one room with a stone fireplace and a narrow bed. Shelves for storage, a table and chair, window facing east toward the sunrise. My father built this, Caleb said from the doorway. Used it as his workshop before the main barn was finished. After he died, I couldn't bring myself to tear it down. Figured someday it'd be useful. Lily set down her bag, running her hand over the smooth log walls. Good construction, tight joints, built by someone who cared about craft. It's perfect. Caleb nodded, then hesitated. There's something you should know. When Tom told me about your father, about the partnership, I looked through some of my father's old things. Found his journal from that last year. He pulled a leather-bound book from his jacket, weathered and stained. I haven't read it all. Some of it's too painful, seeing his handwriting, knowing he was thinking about the future he'd never have. But I thought you might want to see what he wrote about your father. Lily took the journal with reverent hands, opened it to a random page. June 1855. Michael's latest batch of varnish shows real promise. The oak test piece we submerged 3 months ago shows no water damage at all. He's a genius with chemistry, sees patterns I'd never notice. More than that, he's become a true friend, the kind of man you'd trust with your life. Her vision blurred. Her father's friend, her father's partner, the man who'd fled in terror and never spoken of this place. Thank you, she managed. Caleb shifted uncomfortably. I'll let you get settled. Dinner's at 6. Nothing fancy, I'm not much of a cook. Tommy will show you where everything is. He left quickly, like emotional moments were something to escape. Lily spent the afternoon arranging her few possessions in the cabin, then exploring the ranch while Tommy served as enthusiastic tour guide. The boy showed her the barn, the corrals, the cattle grazing in distant pastures. Introduced her to the ranch hands, 2 weathered cowboys named Jake and Pete, who tipped their hats and went back to work without comment. They don't talk much, Tommy explained. Uncle Cal likes it that way, says work gets done faster without jawing. As the sun dropped toward the mountains, Tommy led her to the main house. Inside was exactly what she'd expected. Functional, clean, completely devoid of personality. No curtains on the windows, no pictures on the walls. The furniture was basic, sturdy, nothing decorative or beautiful. The kitchen held cast iron pans and plain dishes. The main room had a table, chairs, a fireplace with ash that needed cleaning. It was a house where someone lived but didn't care about living. Caleb was at the stove stirring something that smelled like beans and salt pork. He glanced up when they entered. Hope you like simple food. I can cook about 3 things and they all involve beans. I'm not picky. They ate at the table in an awkward silence, broken only by Tommy's chatter about his day. Caleb answered in monosyllables, clearly uncomfortable with the dinner conversation. Lily studied him in the lamplight, saw the exhaustion carved into his face, the way his shoulders stayed tense even here in his own home. This was a man who'd forgotten how to relax, how to let his guard down. After dinner, Tommy pulled out his schoolwork. Reading assignments he'd struggled through, alone arithmetic problems that had him stumped. Lily sat beside him, showing him tricks her father had taught her for multiplication. Breaking big problems into smaller pieces, using real-world examples like counting cattle or measuring fence posts. The boy's face lit up as understanding clicked. That makes sense. Why didn't the teacher explain it like that? Because teachers have 20 students in 5 hours. They don't have time to find the way each child learns best. Across the room, Caleb was mending a bridle, but his hands had stilled. He was listening, watching them together. When Tommy's eyes started drooping, Caleb sent him to bed. The boy hugged Lily goodnight, a gesture so natural and trusting it made her throat tight. Then it was just the 2 of them in the lamplight. Caleb set aside the bridle. He likes you. He hasn't warmed to anyone that fast since before his parents died. He's a good kid, sweet, smart when given the right tools. You're good with him. I had a sister, Clara. She was 8 when she died. Tommy reminds me of her sometimes, the way he looks at the world with hope even after everything. Caleb's expression softened. Tom said you lost her to consumption, that you couldn't afford medicine. $8. That's what the doctor wanted. I had 3. Lily's voice was flat. I pawned everything, sold my mother's wedding ring, my winter coat. Still not enough. So I watched my baby sister cough blood and die because I was $3 short. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I was the adult. I was supposed to protect her. and I failed. Caleb stood moved to the fireplace, staring into the dying embers. When Anna and Ruth got sick, I was in Denver, 3 days away. By the time I got the telegram, by the time I rode home hell-bent for leather, they were already gone. Already buried because the heat wouldn't wait. His voice was rough with old pain. I keep thinking if I'd been there, if I'd chosen them over a cattle contract, maybe I could have saved them. Maybe they'd still be alive. Or maybe you'd have gotten sick too, and all three of you would be dead. He turned to look at her, surprise in his gray eyes. We can't know, Lily continued. We can torture ourselves with maybes and what-ifs, but the truth is sometimes terrible. Things happen and there's nothing we can do to stop them. The only choice we have is whether we let it destroy us or teach us. What did it teach you? That love makes you vulnerable, that caring about someone gives the world ammunition to hurt you, but also that the alternative, being alone and hard and closed off, that's not really living. That's just surviving. Caleb moved back to his chair, but he didn't sit. Just stood there, lamplight casting shadows across his weathered face. I'm not good at this, he said quietly, at letting people in, at trusting that they won't leave or die or disappoint. Anna was the only person who ever got past these walls, and when she died, I swore I'd never let anyone that close again. I'm not asking you to. No, you're just standing there being brave and honest and making me remember what it's like to want more than just getting through the day. The air between them felt charged heavy with things unsaid. I should go, Lily said, standing. It's late. Wait. Caleb's hand shot out, not touching her, but close. Tomorrow, I need to show you the fence line that needs repair. And there's furniture in the barn pieces my father made that need finishing, if you're willing to work on them. That's what you're paying me for. Right, work. But his eyes said something different, said he was looking for reasons to keep her close even as his walls screamed to push her away. Lily walked back to her cabin under a sky full of stars, her mind racing. She'd taken the job for money, for survival, but already she could feel it becoming more complicated, could feel the pull of this broken man and his orphaned nephew, could feel herself starting to care despite every lesson life had taught her about the cost of caring. Dangerous. This was dangerous. But then again, when had safety ever gotten her anything worth having? The next week fell into a rhythm. Mornings with Tommy teaching him to read and cipher, while Caleb worked with the cattle. Afternoons at the fence line or in the barn, her hands remembering skills her father had taught her. The fences were a disaster. Whoever had built them used butt joints that would fail within a year. Lily tore them down and rebuilt them properly using mortise and tenon joints that would hold for decades. Caleb watched the first time skeptical, but when he tested her work and found it solid as stone, something shifted in his expression. Where'd you learn to cut joints like that? My father. He said any fool can hammer boards together, but a real carpenter understands wood has a grain, a nature. You work with it, not against it. Smart man. He was, right up until he wasn't. Caleb didn't push for details, and she was grateful. In the evenings after Tommy was in bed, they'd sit on the porch. Not talking much, just existing in the same space. Caleb would mend tack or sharpen tools. Lily would read Isaiah's journal, learning about her father's time in Montana. September 1855. Michael's been jumpy lately, says he's seen Pike watching us taking notes. I told him he's being paranoid, but truth is, I've noticed it too. Pike asks too many questions about the varnish formula, gets angry when we won't show him the full recipe, says we don't trust him after all his hard work. But trust is earned, and he hasn't earned it. The entry was dated 3 days before Isaiah's death. Did you ever confront Pike? Lily asked one evening. Caleb looked up from the bridle he was oiling. Once, when I was 19, rode into town, found him at the saloon, accused him of murder in front of half the town. What happened? He laughed, said I was a grief-stricken kid seeing conspiracies where there was only bad luck. Then he had his friends throw me out. I woke up in an alley with broken ribs and a warning that the next time I made accusations, I couldn't prove I wouldn't wake up at all. His voice was matter of fact, but his hands had tightened on the leather. That's when I learned the world doesn't care about truth. It cares about power. Pike had it, I didn't. End of story. Not the end, Lily said. Just a pause. What that's supposed to mean? It means truth has a way of surfacing. Maybe not on our timeline, but eventually. Every lie leaves evidence. Every crime leaves traces. Pike's been using your father's formula for 30 years. That means there's documentation somewhere. Records of sales chemical compositions. Proof. Caleb shook his head. You're talking about breaking into a councilman's office, stealing documents all to prove something that happened 3 decades ago. That's not justice, that's suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only way to stop men like Pike and Kane from destroying more lives. But she could see the fear in his eyes. The same fear that had kept him silent for 30 years. Some walls were built from pain. Others were built from practicality, from knowing when you were outmatched. On the 8th day, everything changed. Lily was in the barn working on a rocking chair Isaiah had started but never finished. The wood was beautiful cherry that had aged to a deep red. She was fitting the curved rockers when she heard hoofbeats. Fast, urgent hoofbeats. She emerged to find Jake, one of the ranch hands, sliding off his lathered horse. Miss Brennan? Where's Cal? North pasture. What's wrong? Fence down. 20 head of cattle gone driven off in the night. Caleb appeared around the barn, already moving toward his horse. How many? 20, maybe more. Tracks head west toward Kane's property. Caleb's face went hard as stone. Get Pete. We're going after them. Cal, that's exactly what he wants. Jake's voice was urgent. You ride onto Kane's land, making accusations. He'll have the sheriff arrest you for trespassing. Or worse. Those cattle are worth $400. That's 2 months of income. I'm not just letting him steal them. Lily stepped forward. He's right, it's a trap. Kane's escalating. First he cut off my employment. Now he's hitting your finances directly. Next he'll come at you personally. Caleb turned on her, anger flashing. Then what do you suggest? I just let him rob me blind? No, we get proof. We document the theft, get the sheriff to investigate properly, do this legal. The sheriff works for Kane. Then we go over his head. Territorial marshal, federal authorities, someone who isn't in Kane's pocket. Caleb's laugh was bitter. You think that's how the world works, that authorities care about one rancher losing cattle? I think it's better than riding into an ambush. They stared at each other, tension crackling. Tommy appeared on the porch, his young face worried. Uncle Cal, what's happening? Seeing the boy broke something in Caleb's expression. The anger drained, replaced by exhaustion. Nothing, Tommy, just ranch business. But that night after Tommy was asleep, Caleb came to Lily's cabin. She opened the door to find him standing in the moonlight, hat in hand, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. I can't afford to lose any more cattle. The ranch is barely profitable as it is. If Kane keeps stealing from me, I'll be bankrupt by spring. Lily stepped aside, letting him in. He stood in the small space too large for the room, filling it with his presence. 20 years, he said quietly. 20 years I've built this ranch, survived droughts and harsh winters and market collapses, and one man with enough money and malice could take it all away in a season. Then we stop him. How you said it yourself, we need proof. But getting proof means breaking into Pike's office, means stealing documents that could get us hanged if we're caught. Lily moved to the window, looking out at the ranch bathed in moonlight. My father ran from this fight, spent his whole life looking over his shoulder, terrified Pike would find him. And in the end, what did it get him? He died poor and scared, never speaking about Montana, never finding justice for his friend. She turned to face Caleb. I don't want to run. I don't want to spend my life afraid of men who think power makes them untouchable. And I don't think you do either. What I want doesn't matter. What matters is keeping Tommy safe, keeping this ranch running, not throwing everything away on a revenge quest that'll probably get us both killed. It's not revenge, it's evidence. Lily's pulled Isaiah's journal from her shelf. Your father documented everything. Pike's jealousy, his threats, his suspicious behavior. If we can match this to Pike's records, show he stole the formula and profited from it, we can prove motive for murder. 30-year-old murder. No body, no witnesses, just the word of a dead man's journal against a respected councilman. And the waterproof varnish. Chemical analysis could prove Pike's formula matches your father's. That's patent theft at minimum, enough to open an investigation. Caleb sat heavily in the room's only chair. You make it sound possible. It is possible. Difficult, dangerous, maybe even stupid, but possible. He looked up at her gray eyes, searching her face. Why do you care? This isn't your fight. You could leave tomorrow, find work somewhere. Kane's threats don't reach. I tried leaving my problems behind. Came all the way from Philadelphia. Turns out you can't outrun the past, it just follows you in different clothes. Lily sat on the edge of the bed close enough to see the exhaustion carved into his face. Besides, Tommy deserves better than watching you lose everything because you were too afraid to fight. He deserves to see that sometimes you stand up to bullies even when it's hard. And if we fail, if we get caught and Pike destroys us, then at least we failed trying instead of just accepting defeat. Silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and risk. Then Caleb said, if we're going to do this, we do it right. We plan every detail. We have an escape route. And we protect Tommy above everything else. Agreed, And Lily. His voice dropped lower. Thank you for caring when you didn't have to, for seeing past the walls, for making me remember what it's like to hope. He stood to leave, but paused at the door. There's something I need to say. Something I've been trying not to feel, but it's there anyway, getting stronger every day you're here. Lily's heart hammered. Caleb, I'm falling for you, China. The words came out rough, almost angry. I swore I wouldn't. Swore I'd keep this professional, keep you at arm's length. But you're in my head, in my chest, making me want things I promised myself I'd never want again. He turned to face her fully, and it terrifies me, because everyone I've loved has been taken from me. My father murdered, my wife and daughter dead while I was gone. I'm scared that if I love you, the world will find a way to take you too. This was it, the fear confession, the moment Tom had predicted. Lily stood crossing to him. I'm scared too. Scared that if I let myself care about you and Tommy, I'll fail you the way I failed Clara. That I'll be $3 short when it counts, that I'll lose you because I'm not strong enough, or smart enough, or fast enough. She took his hand, feeling the calluses, the scars from a lifetime of hard work. But I'm more scared of never trying, of running away from every good thing because the bad things hurt too much. I did that in Philadelphia, kept everyone at a distance because losing Clara taught me that love equals pain. And all it got me was loneliness. Caleb's other hand came up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. We're a mess, aren't we? Two broken people trying to figure out if broken pieces can fit together. Maybe that's exactly what makes us work. We understand each other's scars. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But she didn't, couldn't. The kiss was soft at first, questioning, then deeper, 3 years of loneliness and grief and desperate hope pouring into the connection. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. If we do this, if we go after Pike and Kane, I need you to promise me something. What? If it goes wrong, if they catch us, you run. You take Tommy and you run and you don't look back. Don't try to save me. Just get him somewhere safe. Cal, promise me, Lily, because I can face losing everything except him. He's lost enough. She wanted to argue, wanted to say they'd succeed or fail together. But the desperation in his voice stopped her. I promise, but it won't come to that because we're not going to fail. How can you be so sure? Because we're smarter than them, we're more desperate, and we have something they don't. What's that? We have nothing left to lose. The next 3 days were spent planning. Caleb drew maps of the town, marking Pike's office location, sightlines, patrol routes for the night watchman. Lily studied the building's structure through Isaiah's old drawings, finding weaknesses in construction that might offer entry points. They decided on midnight, 2 weeks from Friday. Town council meeting nights when Pike would be occupied until late, giving them a window. But planning was interrupted on day 4 by Tommy running into the barn, face pale with fear. Lily, Uncle Cal, men are coming, lots of them. They rushed outside to see a dozen riders approaching at a gallop. At the head rode Vincent Kane, his expensive suit dusty from the road, his face twisted with rage. Caleb stepped in front of Lily, and Tommy, hand dropping to the rifle, leaning against the porch. That's far enough, Kane. This is private property. Kane reined in his horse 20 feet away. I'm here on official business, McAllister. Sheriff sent me to recover stolen cattle. I didn't steal anything. 20 head with Kane cattle brands were found on your north pasture this morning. Sheriff's got warrants to search the property and arrest you for rustling. Lily's blood went cold. The missing cattle. Kane hadn't stolen them. He'd driven them onto Caleb's land to frame him. That's a lie, she said, stepping forward. Those cattle were driven off his property 2 days ago. We reported it. Kane's smile was all teeth. To who? The sheriff you haven't visited? Or are you claiming telepathy? The trap snapped shut with perfect precision. Caleb had wanted to ride after the cattle immediately. Lily had convinced him to wait to document properly, and that delay had given Kane time to brand them with his mark and plant them back on Caleb's land. This is a setup, Caleb said, his voice deadly quiet, and everyone in this territory knows it. What everyone knows, Kane said, is that you're a failed rancher desperate for money. Cattle theft carries a mandatory sentence. 20 years in territorial prison. He gestured to his men. Search the barn, round up any cattle on the property, and McAllister, you're coming with us. Like hell. Caleb raised the rifle. Instantly, a dozen guns rose to meet him. Lily grabbed his arm. Cal, don't. Think of Tommy. The boy was crying now, clutching Lily's skirt. Uncle Cal, please. For a long moment, Caleb stood, frozen rifle aimed at Kane's heart. Every muscle in his body screamed to fight. But then he looked at Tommy, saw the terror in the boy's eyes, and slowly lowered the weapon. Fine, but I want this on record. Vincent Kane framed me. Everyone here is witness. Everyone here works for me, Kane said pleasantly. Search the property. Find everything. What they found in the barn's hayloft was worse than cattle. A bag of gold coins, $500 worth stamped with the territorial mint mark, and a bill of sale forged in Caleb's handwriting selling 20 head of stolen cattle to a buyer in Denver. Lily stared at the evidence in horror. That's not his handwriting. Anyone can see it's forged. Looks pretty good to me, Kane said. He turned to his men. Load the evidence. We'll let the judge decide. They took Caleb in chains, loaded him onto a horse with his hands bound, his face blank with shock. As they rode away, Kane stopped beside Lily. You could have avoided this. I offered you good money. A comfortable position, but you chose pride over practicality. I chose dignity over degradation. Pretty words, but they won't keep you warm when winter comes. They won't feed that boy when the bank forecloses on this ranch. And they certainly won't get your cowboy out of prison. He leaned down from his saddle. Last offer. Work for me. Convince McAllister to sell this land. I'll make the charges disappear. He goes free, you get paid, everyone wins. Except justice. Kane's smile vanished. Justice is a fairy tale for children. Grow up, Miss Brennan. The world belongs to men with power. You're just livestock that hasn't learned its place yet. He rode away, leaving Lily standing in the dust with Tommy sobbing against her side. Threat level 4 achieved. Not just financial ruin now, not just social isolation. Prison. 20 years in chains for a crime he didn't commit. Tommy looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. What do we do? Lily knelt down, taking his face in her hands. We fight. We get proof of what really happened. And we bring your uncle home. How pata? The same way we planned. We break into Pike's office. We find evidence of the partnership, the murder, the stolen formula. We connect Pike to Kane, and we use it to force them to drop the charges. But Uncle Cal said it was too dangerous, that we'd get caught. That was before Kane took away every other option. Lily stood, her jaw set. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is doing nothing, waiting while evil men destroy everything you love. She looked at the cabin where Isaiah Stone had worked, at the ranch Caleb had built with blood and sweat, at the life they'd barely begun to imagine together. Your uncle told me to run if things went wrong, to take you somewhere safe. Tommy's grip tightened on her hand. But you're not going to, are you? No, I'm going to finish what our fathers started 30 years ago. I'm going to prove Pike and Kane are criminals, and I'm going to get Caleb back. She looked down at the boy. But I need your help. Can you be brave? Tommy wiped his eyes, standing straighter. I can be brave. Good, because we're about to commit burglary, theft, and a dozen other crimes. And if we fail, we'll spend the rest of our lives in prison right alongside your uncle. And if we succeed, Lily smiled fierce and determined, then we tear down an empire built on murder and lies. And we make sure every ghost gets their justice. The moon was dark when Lily rode into Silverwood. 3 nights later, Tommy hidden in Kate Murphy's attic. She'd left the boy with explicit instructions: if she didn't return by dawn, take the evidence they'd already gathered and ride for Helena. Find the federal marshal, don't look back. Kate waited in the alley behind the town hall, dressed in black, a pistol in her belt. Last chance to change your mind, the older woman said. No second thoughts. This ends tonight. They moved through darkness like ghosts, two women with everything to lose and nothing left to fear. The town hall window gave way to Lily's crowbar with barely a whisper. She climbed through Kate, following, landing in the hallway outside Pike's office. The door lock took longer. Lily worked by feel, using techniques her father had shown her, until finally the mechanism clicked. Inside, Pike's office smelled of cigar smoke and old paper. Lily lit a shielded lantern, just enough light to work by. Filing cabinets lined one wall. A desk dominated the center. And there in the corner, a small safe. You take the desk, Lily whispered. I'll work on the files. They searched in silence, hands moving quickly, carefully replacing everything exactly as found. Lily found business records first. 30 years of transactions for Pike Waterproofing Company, sales to railroad companies, territorial governments, private contractors. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, all from a formula he'd stolen. Kate found something better, a journal hidden in a false drawer bottom, Pike's private accounts documenting bribes paid to sheriffs, judges, officials. Evidence of cattle theft, property fraud, a dozen illegal schemes. And on the final page, dated September 13th, 1855, tonight I make my move. Stone will be working late at the barn. An accident easily staged. Kane will help. The boy's useful, does what he's told. Once Stone is gone, the formula is mine. Brennan will run. He's weak, always has been. This time tomorrow, I'll be rich. Confession to murder. 30 years late, but crystal clear. Lily was photographing the page with Kate's small camera when they heard it. Footsteps in the hallway, keys in the lock. The door opened, lamplight flooding in, and Gerald Pike stood framed in the doorway. Behind him, Vincent Kane. Behind them, 3 armed men. Well, Pike said, his voice almost amused. Breaking and entering. Theft. I do believe that's another 20 years, Miss Brennan. You'll be an old woman before you see sunlight again. Kane's smile was cold. I tried to warn you, jobs are scarce. Now prison cells aren't. But Lily was already moving, shoving the journal into her coat, diving for the window. Stop her! Gunshots exploded in the small space, deafening. Kate returned fire, her old pistol barking twice. Lily crashed through the window glass, shredding her coat, tumbling into the alley. Behind her, Kate screamed. Lily spun and saw Kate on the floor, blood spreading across her shoulder. Run, Kate shouted. Run, damn you! More gunshots. Lily ran. Through alleys, across streets, men shouting behind her. To the livery where she'd left her horse. Into the saddle, spurring the animal to a gallop. East, toward the ranch, toward Tommy. Behind her pursuit. But she had the journal, had the proof. Now she just had to survive long enough to use it. The horse thundered through darkness, hoofbeats loud as gunshots in the mountain silence. Lily leaned low over the animal's neck, Pike's journal pressed against her chest like a shield, blood from glass cuts mixing with sweat. Behind her pursuit, 5 riders, maybe more, their shouts echoing off the canyon walls. Ahead, the ranch. Tommy, safety or a trap? Lily pulled the horse to a stop, a quarter-mile from the main house, breathing hard, thinking harder. If Kane's men were chasing her, and others might already be at the ranch, waiting for her to lead them straight to the boy. She circled wide, approaching from the north through the tree line, left the exhausted horse tied in the pines, and crept forward on foot, Pike's journal tucked into her coat. The ranch lay quiet under starlight. Too quiet. No lights in the main house. No smoke from the chimney. The barn doors stood open, swinging slightly in the night breeze. Wrong. Everything was wrong. Lily moved like smoke through the darkness, every sense screaming danger. Reached her cabin and found the door kicked in, her few possessions scattered across the floor. They'd been here. Searched everything. She was turning to leave when she saw it. A piece of paper pinned to her pillow with a knife. We have the boy. Bring the journal to the Silver Creek Bridge by dawn, or we hang him for cattle theft alongside McAllister. Come alone, try anything, and the kid dies first. The words blurred. Lily's vision tunneled, rage and terror warring in her chest. They had Tommy. She'd promised Caleb to keep him safe, had sworn she'd protect the boy, and she'd failed just like she'd failed Clara. No, not like Clara. She'd been powerless then, $3 short with no options. But now she had leverage, had proof that could destroy Pike and Kane both. The question was whether they'd honor a trade or just kill all three of them once they had the journal. Lily knew the answer. Men like Pike and Kane didn't leave witnesses. They'd take the journal, hang Caleb and Tommy for cattle theft, and make Lily disappear into the mountains where bodies were never found. Unless she changed the game. The ride to town took an hour, pushing the borrowed horse hard. Lily's mind raced the whole way, formulating a plan that was either brilliant or suicidal. Probably both. Murphy's rooms was dark when she arrived, but she pounded on the door until a light appeared upstairs. A window opened, and Tom Fletcher's grizzled face appeared. Lily. What in God's name? Kate's been shot. She's at the doctor's office, and I need your help, right now. Tom was dressed and downstairs in 3 minutes, his face grim as she explained everything. The break-in, Pike's confession, the gunfight, Tommy's kidnapping. They want to trade at dawn, Lily finished. The journal for the boy, but they'll kill us all anyway. Then we don't make the trade. Tom's voice was hard. We go to the federal marshal in Helena. Show him the journal. Let the law handle this. Tommy will be dead by the time the marshal gets here. Caleb, too. They're not bluffing Tom. Then what do you propose? Lily pulled Pike's journal from her coat. We make copies, multiple copies. Hide the originals where Kane can never find them. Then we take the forgeries to the bridge and use them to buy time. Time for what? Time for you to ride to the territorial prison where they're holding Caleb. Show the warden this journal. Get him released on emergency authority. When Kane realizes Caleb's free and carrying proof of their crimes, he'll have to negotiate. Tom's eyes widen. That's insane. The warden won't release a prisoner on the word of an old blacksmith. He will if you tell him federal marshals are already en route with evidence of judicial corruption. That keeping Caleb in prison makes him complicit in a murder conspiracy. But there are no federal marshals. Not yet, but there will be by the time Kane figures that out. Lily's smile was fierce. We're going to bluff them into surrender. Make them think we've already won. Tom studied her for a long moment. Then he started to laugh, a rough sound that turned into a cough. Your father would be proud. Michael always said the best carpentry was about leverage, finding the right angle to apply pressure. Will you do it? I'll do more than that. I'll take Jake and Pete with me. 3 men with rifles will be harder to ignore than one old blacksmith. He gripped her shoulder. But Lily, if this goes wrong, if it goes wrong, we're no worse off than we already are. But if it works, we save 2 lives and destroy 2 men who've gotten away with murder for 30 years. She spent the next 2 hours in Tom's back room, carefully copying Pike's journal word for word. Her father had taught her to forge documents when she was 12, a skill used for replicating damaged blueprints. Now it might save her life. 3 copies each, aged with tea stains and careful weathering. Close enough to fool a quick inspection. Not close enough to survive scrutiny, but she only needed them to work for an hour. Tom left at 3 in the morning, riding hard for the territorial prison 40 miles north. Lily watched him go, then turned her attention to the second part of the plan. The part where she walked into a trap with forged evidence and prayed she could talk fast enough to stay alive. Dawn came cold and colorless. Lily rode towards Silver Creek Bridge with a forged journal in her coat and a prayer on her lips. The original was hidden in Tom's smithy, sealed in a metal box and buried under the forge. Even if they killed her, the evidence would survive. Small comfort. The bridge appeared as mist rose from the creek, a wooden structure spanning 30 feet of rushing water. On the far side, 5 horses waited, 4 men with rifles. And in the center, hands bound a gag in his mouth, stood Tommy. Lily's heart clenched. The boy's face was bruised, eyes wide with terror. But he was alive. She dismounted slowly, hands visible, showing she was unarmed. I'm here. Let him go. Vincent Kane stepped forward, his expensive suit rumpled from the night's chase. Show me the journal first. Show me he's unharmed first. Kane nodded to one of his men who removed Tommy's gag. The boy immediately shouted, Lily, don't. It's a trap. They're gonna... The gag went back in rough hands, silencing him. He's fine, Kane said. Just scared. Like you should be. He gestured impatiently. The journal. Now. Lily pulled the forged copy from her coat, holding it up. This is Gerald Pike's confession to murdering Isaiah Stone. Everything's here. Dates, methods, motive. Enough to hang him. Then you're a fool for bringing it. Did you really think we'd trade, that we'd let you walk away with evidence that could destroy us? I think you're trapped. This isn't the only copy. Lily's voice was steady even as her heart hammered. I made duplicates, sent them to the territorial governor, the federal marshal's office in Helena, and the Denver newspapers. By noon today, everyone in Montana will know what you did. It was a bluff, a desperate, transparent bluff. But for a moment, just a moment, doubt flickered across Kane's face. You're lying. Am I? You want to bet your neck on it? Gerald Pike emerged from behind the men, older than in Lily's imagination. Maybe 70, white-haired, with the face of a grandfather and the eyes of a snake. She's bluffing. There hasn't been time to send copies anywhere. She's been running all night. Then why'd she come? Kane turned to Pike. If she sent copies, why bring this one? Why not just wait for the law to arrive? Because the boy, Pike said. She cares about the boy. Classic leverage. He moved closer to Tommy, pulling a knife from his belt, pressed it against the child's throat. Here's what's going to happen, Miss Brennan. You're going to give me that journal. The real one, not whatever forgery you're holding. Then you're going to tell me where the copies are. And if you cooperate, if you're smart, we'll make it quick. The boy too. Painless. And if I don't cooperate, then I start with his fingers. Move up to his hands. See how long you can watch a child scream before you break. Tommy whimpered behind the gag, tears streaming down his face. Lily felt something snap inside her. All the fear, all the careful planning, burning away in a white-hot rage. You want the truth, fine. Here's the truth. She pulled out the forged journal, held it up. This is a copy, a fake. Good enough to fool you at a distance, but useless as evidence. The real journal is buried where you'll never find it. And yes, I sent copies, not to the governor or the marshal. I sent one to Tom Fletcher, who's riding to the territorial prison right now to show the warden. Another's with Kate Murphy, who survived your bullets and is currently telling her story to everyone in town. The men shifted uneasily. But the best copy, Lily smiled. I gave it to a traveling salesman heading east this morning. Told him to deliver it to the Philadelphia Inquirer with a note explaining everything. How a Montana councilman murdered his business partner 30 years ago. How he stole a fortune in intellectual property. How he and his protege have been terrorizing this territory for decades. You're lying, Pike said, but his voice wavered. Maybe. Or maybe tomorrow's newspaper will have your confession on the front page. Maybe federal marshals are already riding from Helena. Maybe you're already finished and just don't know it yet. She took a step forward. But none of that matters right now. What matters is that knife at Tommy's throat. So here's my offer. Let him go. Take this fake journal and run. Get as far as you can before the law catches up. At least then you'll die free instead of hanging in front of a crowd. Or, Kane said, raising his pistol. I shoot you right now, then we torture the boy until he tells us where everything is hidden. Easier that way. The pistol cocked loud in the morning silence. Lily stood perfectly still, staring down the barrel. Go ahead, shoot. But the moment that gun fires, you lose your only leverage. Tom won't stop. Kate won't stop. This whole territory will know what you did, and Caleb McAllister will spend the rest of his life hunting you. McAllister's in prison. For now. The words hung in the air, and then from the tree line behind Kane's men, a voice rang out. Not anymore. Caleb McAllister stepped into the clearing, rifle raised, looking like the wrath of God made flesh. Behind him, Jake and Pete, both armed. And Tom Fletcher, his old pistol steady in gnarled hands. How? Kane spun, his composure cracking. You're in prison. I saw you locked up. Warden's funny about holding innocent men once he sees proof they were framed. Caleb's voice was ice. Tom showed him Pike's journal. Federal marshals are on their way. You're done, Kane. I'll kill the boy. Pike's knife pressed harder against Tommy's throat. A thin line of blood appeared. You heard him, Caleb said quietly, and I'll make sure you live long enough to regret it. Drop the knife, let him go. Maybe the judge will show mercy. Mercy? Pike laughed, a sound like breaking glass. I've owned this territory for 30 years. Judges, sheriffs, half the territorial government. You think one journal changes that? I think 3 journals change it. Tom stepped forward. One's with the marshal, one's with the newspaper, and one's in the governor's office with a letter explaining everything. You're not just facing murder charges, you're facing federal corruption charges. Everyone you've bribed will turn on you to save themselves. Pike's hand trembled, the knife wavered. Last chance, Caleb said. Let the boy go. Surrender, or we end this right here. For a long moment, no one moved. The creek rushed below the bridge. Birds sang in the trees, unaware of the human drama playing out. Then Pike made his choice. He shoved Tommy forward, the boy stumbling toward Lily. At the same moment, Pike's hand flashed to his belt, pulling a hidden pistol. Everything happened at once. Caleb fired his bullet, taking Pike in the shoulder. The old man spun his own shot, going wild. Kane drew, aiming at Caleb. Jake's rifle barked, hitting Kane's gun hand. The pistol flew into the creek. Lily caught Tommy, pulling him behind her, shielding his body with her own. Pike was on the ground, screaming, blood spreading across his white shirt. His pistol lay 3 feet away, smoke still curling from the barrel. Kane's men threw down their weapons, hands raised, smart enough to know when they were beaten. Caleb crossed to Pike, kicked the pistol away, stood over the man who'd murdered his father. 30 years, he said quietly. 30 years you walked free, while my father rotted in the ground. While I grew up fatherless, while my mother drank herself to death from grief. All so you could get rich off his work. Pike clutched his bleeding shoulder, his face pale. He was weak. Would have wasted the formula on fair deals and honest work. I built an empire. You built a lie. Caleb's voice was hard. And it ends today. He turned to Tom. Tie them up. All of them. We'll hold them until the marshal arrives. The old blacksmith moved forward with rope binding Kane and Pike and their men with practiced efficiency. Jake and Pete kept their rifles trained, making sure no one tried anything stupid. Lily knelt beside Tommy, checking him for injuries beyond the small cut on his throat. The boy threw his arms around her, sobbing. I thought they were going to kill you. I thought I'd never see you again. I promised your uncle I'd keep you safe. I don't break promises. But they had you surrounded. How'd you know Uncle Cal would come? I didn't, but I knew Tom would try, and I knew your uncle wouldn't stay in prison if there was any chance of saving you. The rest was just hoping we all timed it right. Caleb approached, his face still hard, but something softer in his eyes when he looked at Tommy. You okay, kid? Tommy nodded, then launched himself at his uncle. Caleb caught him holding tight, and for the first time, Lily saw real emotion crack through his walls. Fear, relief, love, all mixed together. I'm sorry, Caleb said into Tommy's hair. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, that they got to you because of me. It's not your fault. Miss Lily said bad men do bad things because they're bad, not because we're weak. Caleb looked at Lily over Tommy's head. She's right, she usually is. The sound of hoofbeats interrupted the moment. A dozen riders appeared over the rise, led by a man wearing a federal marshal's badge. Marshal Thomas Wilson dismounted, taking in the scene. Bound prisoners, armed civilians, a woman with glass cuts on her face, and a boy with blood on his throat. Tom Fletcher sent word, said there was evidence of murder and corruption. I'm here to collect it and the men responsible. Lily pulled the real journal from inside her shirt where she'd hidden it all along. The forged copy had been a decoy backup in case Pike searched her. Everything you need is in here. Confession to Isaiah Stone's murder in 1855. Records of bribes paid to officials. Chemical formulas stolen from the original inventors. 30 years of crimes, all documented. Wilson opened the journal, reading quickly. His expression darkened with each page. Gerald Pike, Vincent Kane, you're under arrest for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, grand theft, bribery of public officials, and about a dozen other charges I'll think of on the ride to Helena. Pike was still clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. You can't prove anything. That journal could be forged. Could be, but the chemical analysis won't be. We'll test your varnish formula against the one in this journal. If they match, that's patent theft at minimum. Add in the testimony from Tom Fletcher, Kate Murphy, and half the town, and you'll hang. I want a lawyer. You'll get one right before the trial, but Gerald, Wilson's smile was cold. Your money won't help you in federal court, and every judge you've bribed will be under investigation. You're done. They loaded Pike and Kane onto horses hands-bound, heading for Helena and Justice 3 decades late. As the sun rose fully over the mountains, painting everything gold, Caleb stood with his arm around Tommy and his eyes on Lily. You saved us. Saved the ranch. Saved my life. Saved this boy. I don't know how to... You don't have to say anything. Lily moved closer. We saved each other. That's what partners do. Partners. Caleb's hand found hers. Is that what we are? I don't know. What do you want us to be? He looked at Tommy, who was grinning despite his tears. Looked at Tom Fletcher, who nodded encouragement. Looked back at Lily, this woman who'd come to Montana with 11 cents and somehow changed everything. I want us to be family, Caleb said. Real family, not just employer and employee, not just friends. I want to marry you, Lily Rose Brennan. Want to build a life together. Want to watch Tommy grow up with a mother who loves him. Want to fill that house with warmth instead of just function. That's a lot of wants. I know. And I know it's fast. We've barely known each other a month. But every day with you has felt more real than the last 3 years combined. You make me remember what it's like to hope. Lily looked at this man who'd been so broken, so closed off. Saw him fully open now, vulnerable in a way that must terrify him. Saw the life they could build together. Not perfect, never perfect, but real and honest and filled with the kind of love that survives because it's been tested in fire. Yes, she said simply. Yes, I'll marry you on one condition. Name it. We build that life together, equal partners in everything, the ranch raising Tommy, every decision. I'm not looking for someone to save me or protect me. I'm looking for someone to stand beside me. Equal partners, Caleb agreed. He pulled her close, kissing her, with Tommy cheering between them, with Tom laughing with the sun rising over mountains that had witnessed so much pain and were finally seeing something like justice. We should make it official, Tom said when they broke apart. There's a preacher in town. Good man, not in Kane's pocket. We could do it today if you want. Today, Lily looked down at her torn, bloody clothes. I look like I've been through a war. You have been, Northampton, Caleb said, and you won. Seems like the perfect time to celebrate. So they rode back to Silverwood as the town woke news of Pike and Kane's arrest spreading like wildfire. People emerged from buildings staring in amazement as the group passed. Kate Murphy was on her porch arm in a sling, but very much alive. She waved with her good hand. Heard you took down the bastards who've been running this town into the ground. About damn time. Couldn't have done it without you, Lily called back. You up for a wedding this afternoon? Whose wedding? Mine. Kate's whoop of joy could be heard 3 streets over. The preacher, Reverend Matthews, was happy to perform the ceremony on short notice. Word spread fast, and by noon the small church was packed with townspeople who'd lived under Kane and Pike's shadow for years and were eager to celebrate their downfall. Lily wore a borrowed dress, simple blue cotton, that Kate had altered quickly. Her hair was braided with wildflowers Tommy had picked. She had no family to walk her down the aisle, but Tom Fletcher offered his arm, and in that moment he felt like family enough. Caleb stood at the altar in his only good suit, freshly cleaned, his face transformed by the closest thing to joy Lily had ever seen on him. Tommy stood beside his uncle, as best man, grinning so wide his face must hurt. Reverend Matthews began the ceremony with words about love and commitment, about building futures from broken pasts. But Lily barely heard them. She was too focused on Caleb's gray eyes, seeing herself reflected there, seeing possibility and hope and hard-won trust. Do you, Caleb Stone McAllister, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold in sickness and health for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? I do. His voice was steady, sure. I absolutely do. And do you, Lily Rose Brennan, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold in sickness and health for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? Lily thought about the journey that had brought her here, Philadelphia to Montana, desperation to hope, alone to family. I do. Then by the power vested in me by the Montana Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. The kiss was soft at first, then deeper, 3 years of loneliness and a month of growing love pouring into the connection. When they broke apart, the church erupted in applause. They walked back down the aisle together, husband and wife, with Tommy bouncing between them. On the church steps in front of half the town, Tommy looked up at Lily with hopeful eyes. Can I call you Mama now? Uncle Cal said I should ask first. But you're married, so that makes you my aunt. But you feel more like a mama, so can I? Lily knelt down, taking his face in her hands. I would be honored if you called me Mama. But you know that doesn't mean I'm replaced by your real mother, right? She'll always be your mother. I'm just lucky enough to be the woman who gets to help raise the wonderful boys she brought into the world. Tommy hugged her so hard she nearly fell over. And when he whispered, "Thanks, Mama," against her shoulder, Lily felt something break open in her chest. The last wall, the last piece of armor she'd worn since Clara died. She was a mother again. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And that she realized might be even stronger. The celebration moved to Murphy's rooms, where Kate had somehow prepared a feast despite her wounded shoulder. The whole town turned out eating and drinking and toasting the fall of Pike and Kane. As the sun set, Caleb pulled Lily onto the porch away from the crowd. I know we just got married, he said, but I need to tell you something. Something I've never told anyone. What? When Anna and Ruth died, when I came home to find them already buried, I stood at those graves and I swore I'd never let anyone that close again. Swore I'd live the rest of my life alone because the pain of losing them was too much to survive twice. His hand found hers. But you changed that. You climbed over every wall I built. You made me want to live instead of just survive. And I'm terrified, Lily. Terrified that the world will take you too. That I'll lose you the way I lost them. You might, Lily said honestly. Life doesn't come with guarantees. I could die tomorrow. You could. Tommy could. That's the risk of loving anyone. And then why take it? Why open ourselves to that kind of pain? Because the alternative is worse. Living without love, without connection, without moments like this. She gestured to the party inside to Tom, laughing with Kate to Tommy, showing off his new suspenders to anyone who'd look. That's not living. That's just waiting to die. Caleb pulled her close. When did you get so wise? Somewhere between 11 cents and a cattle ranch. It's been a busy month. He laughed, the sound free and genuine. I love you, Lily McAllister. I love you too. Now kiss your wife and let's go tell our son it's bedtime. Our son, the words felt right. 10 days later, federal prosecutors arrived from Washington to handle Pike and Kane's trial. The case was national news by then. The Philadelphia Inquirer had indeed received Lily's story and printed it on the front page. Montana councilman held in 30-year-old murder, the headline read. Stolen patent worth fortune. The trial lasted a week. Testimony from Tom Fletcher about the original partnership. Chemical analysis proving Pike's varnish matched Isaiah Stone's formula exactly. The journal authenticated by handwriting experts. And Caleb's testimony about finding his father's body, about the saw marks, about 30 years of knowing truth and being powerless to prove it. The jury deliberated for 20 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Gerald Pike was sentenced to hang for murder. Vincent Kane got 20 years for conspiracy and a dozen other charges. Standing on the courthouse steps after the verdict, Caleb looked at Lily. It's over. After 30 years, it's actually over. Not over, she corrected. Just beginning. The hard part was getting justice. Now comes the really difficult work. What's that? Building something beautiful from the wreckage. Proving that good can win, that families can heal, that second chances are real. He kissed her forehead. Think we can do it? I know we can. We already are. 6 months later, Lily stood on the porch of Stone Creek Ranch watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. Her hand rested on her swelling belly, 5 months pregnant with their first child together. Inside, Tommy was helping Caleb make breakfast, their laughter drifting through the open window. The ranch had changed in half a year. Curtains on the windows now. Flowers in pots along the porch. Pictures on the walls, furniture that was beautiful as well as functional. A home, not just a house. The waterproof varnish formula, rightfully returned to the Stone family, was being sold legally now. Fair contracts with the railroad companies. Honest business that was making them more money than Pike had ever stolen. McAllister Waterproofing, the company was called, with Tom Fletcher as partner handling the business side, while Caleb and Lily focused on the ranch. Life was good. Not perfect, never perfect. But real and honest and filled with the kind of love that survives because it's built on truth. Lily heard the door open behind her. Caleb's arms came around her waist, hands resting on her belly. "Morning, Mrs. McAllister." "Morning, Mr. McAllister." Tommy up. "Up and requesting pancakes. Specifically your pancakes, not mine. Claims mine taste like saddle leather." Lily laughed. "He's not wrong." Rude but accurate. Caleb's chin rested on her shoulder. "You know what I was thinking this morning." "What?" "About that letter, the one Cain forged. How it was meant to be cruel to humiliate me, but it brought me the best thing that ever happened." "Tommy's going to be offended you called me the best thing." "Tommy's second best, and he knows it." Caleb turned her to face him. "I'm serious, though. That forged letter, that lie, that it gave me back my life, gave me you and a future and a family. Makes me wonder sometimes if there is such a thing as fate. I don't believe in fate, but I believe in choices. You chose to hire me. I chose to stay. We chose to fight instead of run. Those choices led us here. Best choices I ever made." "Second best," Lily corrected. "Best choice is still to come." "What's that?" She took his hand, placed it on her belly where the baby kicked. "Choosing to raise this child together. Choosing to fill this house with love. Choosing every day to build something better than what came before." Caleb kissed her soft and sweet and full of promise. "You're right, the best is still to come." And it was. 5 years passed. Stone Creek Ranch grew to 3,000 acres, one of the most successful operations in Montana Territory. McAllister Waterproofing Company expanded, employing half the town, treating wood for projects across the West. Lily and Caleb's daughter, Ruth Clara McAllister, was born in the spring of 1886. Dark hair like her father, blue eyes like her mother, and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. Tommy, now 15, worked the ranch alongside Caleb, learning the business and developing his own interest in breeding horses. He'd grown tall and strong, all the childish fear replaced by quiet confidence. Kate Murphy had moved to a cottage on the ranch property after her boarding house burned down. She claimed retirement but spent most days helping raise Ruth Clara and telling anyone who'd listen about the time she got shot helping take down a corrupt councilman. Tom Fletcher had lived to see Pike hang, then pass peacefully in his sleep at 76. His funeral filled the church. His gravestone read, "Master Blacksmith, true friend, fighter for justice." The town of Silverwood thrived once Cain and Pike's stranglehold was broken. New businesses opened. Fair contracts replaced corrupt deals. The sheriff who'd taken bribes was voted out, replaced by a man who actually cared about law. On a warm evening in 1891, Lily sat on the porch watching Ruth Clara play in the yard while Tommy taught her to lasso a fence post. Caleb emerged from the barn dusty from a day's work, his face creased with smile lines that hadn't existed 6 years ago. "Letter came from Philadelphia," he said, handing her an envelope. "Your cousin Martha." Lily opened it carefully. Inside was an invitation to a family reunion and a note. "Dear Lily, I hope this letter finds you well. We heard about your adventures in Montana, about bringing down corrupt men and building an empire. The whole family is proud. We'd love to see you again, to meet your husband and children. Please come visit. There's so much to catch up on." "Think you want to go?" Caleb asked. Lily thought about Philadelphia, about the life she'd fled, the poverty and fear and desperation. Thought about Clara's grave still in the potter's field because she'd never had money for a proper stone. "Maybe," she said, "but not to stay, just to show them I survived, that I built something beautiful from the ruins." "We built it," Caleb corrected, sitting beside her. "Together." "We built it together," Lily agreed. Ruth Clara came running over, her dress muddy, her face flushed with joy. "Mama, Papa Tommy says if I practice every day I can rope a real calf by my birthday." "Does he now?" Caleb scooped her up, tickling until she squealed. "What do you say, Mama? Think our little girl is ready for real ranch work?" "I think our little girl can do anything she sets her mind to. She's got her father's determination and her mother's stubbornness." That's a dangerous combination. The best kind. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, Lily looked at her family. Her husband strong and healed. Her daughter wild and free. Her son, because Tommy was her son, in every way that mattered, growing into a fine young man. Thought about the journey that had brought her here. 11 cents in a forged letter. Desperation in hope. Death in rebirth. You know what's strange, she said to Caleb. Sometimes I think about that stagecoach driver, the one who tried to hurt me, who gave me this scar. She touched the faint mark on her lip, barely visible now. If he hadn't, I might not have fought back. Might not have learned I was stronger than I thought. Might have arrived here softer, easier to break. In a weird way, his cruelty prepared me for what came after. Don't credit him for your strength. You were always strong, you just didn't know it yet. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. We were both broken when we met. Two people so damaged, we didn't think we'd ever be whole again. And now I think maybe broken pieces can fit together better than perfect ones, because we understand each other's cracks. We know where the weak points are, and we protect them. Mama, Papa, look. Ruth, Clara had escaped Caleb's arms and was now successfully roping the fence post, her small face alight with triumph. That's my girl, Caleb called. Now see if you can do it 3 times in a row. Lily watched her daughter practice this, child born from love and second chances. Watched Tommy guide her technique with infinite patience. Watched her husband beam with pride. This was her legacy. Not the money or the ranch or the successful business. This, family, love, second chances given and received. The broken pieces fitting together into something stronger than either could have built alone. 15 years passed. Ruth Clara grew into a young woman who split her time between ranching and architecture, designing buildings across the territory. Tommy married Sarah Henderson from the dry goods store, had 3 children of his own, took over managing Stone Creek Ranch when Caleb's back finally gave out. Lily and Caleb added 2 more children. Michael Isaiah McAllister, named for both grandfathers, and Clara Kate McAllister, honoring the sister and friend who'd shaped Lily's path. McAllister Waterproofing became a statewide company when Montana achieved statehood in 1889. The formula that had cost 2 men their lives now protected thousands of buildings, bridges, fences across the West. Every sale included a plaque, original formula developed by Isaiah Stone and Michael Brennan, 1855. Patent restored to rightful heirs, 1886. The ghosts had their recognition at last. In 1906, Lily turned 50. Her hair showed gray, her hands bore the scars of 40 years working with wood and tools. But her eyes were bright, her back straight, her heart full. The family gathered for a celebration at the ranch. Tommy's children grown now with kids of their own. Ruth Clara, fresh from designing Helena's new courthouse. Michael running the waterproofing company. Clara Kate studying medicine in Denver. 12 grandchildren in total, ranging from 20 years old to 6 months. Caleb, now 60, sat on the porch watching the chaos with contentment. Remember when this house was silent, he asked Lily, as a grandchild shrieked with laughter inside. When the only sound was wind and cattle. I remember thinking it was the loneliest place I'd ever seen. And now it's the loudest. He took her hand. Thank you for that, for filling the silence with life. We did it together. Always together. He kissed her knuckles. That was the promise, wasn't it? Equal partners in everything. Still is the promise. That night, after the family had left, after the house grew quiet again, Lily found herself in the old cabin where she'd first lived. It was a workshop now, tools lining the walls, projects in various stages of completion. She ran her hand over a rocking chair she was building for Ruth Clara's first child, due in spring. Cherry wood like the one Isaiah Stone had started, the circle completing itself. The door creaked. Caleb's outline filled the frame. Thought I'd find you here. Can't sleep. Just thinking. About the letter, the forged one that brought me here. I still have it, you know, kept it all these years. She pulled it from a drawer, unfolding the creased paper carefully. I am Caleb McAllister, rancher in Montana Territory. I require a wife to manage my household and help raise my young nephew. Why keep it? Because it's where our story started, with a lie that became the truest thing in my life. Caleb moved behind her arms, wrapping around her waist in a gesture so familiar it felt like breathing. You know what I think about sometimes? That Vincent Kane probably died in prison, cursing the day he sent that letter, never understanding that his cruelty created something beautiful. Good. I hope he died bitter. He deserved worse. Bloodthirsty Mrs. McAllister. Honest Mr. McAllister. Lily turned in his arms. He tried to destroy you. Instead, he gave you me. I call that justice. They stood there in the lamplight, two people who'd been broken and had healed together, scars and all. I love you, Caleb said. 50 years from now, when we're old and gray and can barely remember our own names, I'll still love you. We're already old and gray. Older and grayer then. Point stands. Lily laughed, the sound younger than her years. I love you too. Race you to 50 years. You're on. They would make it to 47. 1920 came cold and bitter. Caleb McAllister passed in his sleep at age 69. Lily holding his hand, their family gathered around. His last words were whispered just to her. Best 85 cents I never spent. It took Lily a moment to understand. The letter had cost about 85 cents to send from Philadelphia. He was saying that even though he hadn't sent it, even though it was a lie that started their story, he was grateful. She laughed through her tears. Worth every penny you didn't pay. He squeezed her hand once more, then slipped away, peaceful. The funeral filled the church and spilled into the street. Ranchers and businessmen, family and friends, 3 generations of McAllisters. Lily stood at the grave, 85 years old but straight-backed, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. He was a good man, the preacher said, a faithful husband, a loving father, a pillar of this community. But Lily barely heard the eulogy. She was thinking about the boy she'd met 65 years ago, standing in a corral with walls built so high the sun couldn't reach. Thinking about how love had torn those walls down brick by brick. Tommy, now 75 but still ranch strong, put his arm around her. You okay, Mama? She patted his hand. I'm okay, son. Your Uncle Cal lived a good life. He died surrounded by people who loved him. That's all any of us can ask. Are you going to be okay living alone? Lily looked around at the crowd. Her children, their spouses. 12 grandchildren with families of their own. 8 great-grandchildren playing in the grass, too young to understand death. Alone, Tommy looked around. How could I possibly be alone? 2 years later, Lily Rose McAllister sat on the porch of Stone Creek Ranch, watching her great-great-grandchildren play in the yard. 65 years old, her hands knotted from decades of carpentry, her back still straight with the strength that had carried her through. But her mind was sharp, her memory clear. Ruth Clara's granddaughter, also named Lily, came to sit beside her. Great-grandma, tell me the story again, about how you came to Montana. Haven't you heard it 100 times? But it's the best story. Please. Lily smiled, looking out at the mountains that had witnessed so much. Births and deaths, joy and sorrow, justice delayed and finally delivered. All right, but just one more time. She settled back in her chair, the young Lily curled against her side. I came to Montana in 1885 with 11 cents in my pocket and dried blood at the corner of my mouth. Came here expecting a husband who didn't exist, chasing a future that was a lie. Came here broken and desperate and terrified. But you stayed. I stayed because sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the best futures. That forged letter brought me to your great-great-grandfather. It brought me to this land. It brought me to a family I didn't know I needed. She pulled out the letter, creased in yellow with age, kept all these years. Read it aloud one more time. I am Caleb McAllister, rancher in Montana Territory. I require a wife to manage my household and help raise my young nephew. If you are of good character and willing to work, I believe we could make a fair arrangement. Young Lily looked up with wide eyes. But he didn't send it. Mr. Kane did, to be mean. That's right. It was cruelty disguised as kindness. But sometimes even cruelty can plant seeds of grace. Your great-great-grandfather didn't send this letter, but he became everything it promised and more. She folded the paper carefully. We made more than an arrangement, my love and I. We made a life. We made all of you. She looked at the young girl. You're named for me, you know, Lily Rose. The 4th in our family to carry that name. Do you know what it means? What? It means you come from a line of strong women who refused to break, who took 11 cents and built empires, who loved fierce and fought hard and left this world better than they found it. Will I be strong like you, great-grandma? Lily cupped the girl's face, seeing echoes of her own features, her daughters, her granddaughters, all the women who'd come from her. Stronger. Because you'll stand on the shoulders of all of us who came before. You'll have advantages we never dreamed of. And when life knocks you down, because it will, you'll remember that your great-great-grandmother came to Montana with nothing and left a legacy. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting them in the same shades of blood and gold that Lily had first seen 65 years ago. She thought about the journey, Philadelphia to Montana, 11 cents to a cattle empire, one broken woman to 4 generations of family. Thought about Caleb, gone 2 years, but still so present in every corner of this ranch. In the house he'd built, the business they'd created, the children they'd raised. Great-grandma, young Lily's voice pulled her back. Are you okay? I'm perfect, sweetling, just remembering. Remembering what? Remembering that the letters we don't send sometimes matter most. That lies can lead to truth. That broken pieces can fit together better than the whole ones ever could. She looked at the ranch, the mountains, the sky turning purple with dusk. And that sometimes 11 cents is all it takes to build a legacy that will last for generations. Young Lily hugged her, and Lily closed her eyes, breathing in the scent of the child's hair, the pine on the wind, the leather and wood smoke that had been the smell of home for 65 years. She was tired, so tired, but it was a good tired. The kind that came from a life well lived, a race well run. Caleb was waiting. Clara and Kate and Tom. Her father, whoever he had really been. All the ghosts she'd carried, all the people she'd loved. But not yet, not quite yet. There were still great-great-grandchildren to meet, still stories to tell, still life to live. She opened her eyes, smiled at young Lily. Come on, sweetling, let's go inside. I smell your mama's cooking, and I'm not missing dinner for anything. They walked into the house together, old and young, past and future, the legacy continuing. Behind them, the mountains stood eternal. The same mountains that had witnessed a desperate woman with 11 cents arrive on a forged promise. The same mountains that had seen her fight and love and build and triumph. The same mountains that would stand long after she was gone, silent guardians of a story that started with a lie and ended with a truth. That sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things we become. That love, when it's real, transforms everything it touches. And that the measure of a life isn't in how we start, but in what we leave behind. Lily Rose McAllister passed peacefully in her sleep 3 months later, surrounded by family, her hands still holding the worn letter that had changed her life. She was buried beside Caleb on a hill overlooking Stone Creek Ranch, their headstones reading simply, Caleb McAllister, 1851 to 1920. He built a legacy from broken pieces. Lily Rose McAllister, 1857 to 1922. She came with 11 cents and left with everything. And below, added by their children. Together, they proved that the best love stories start with the worst mistakes.